The day my sister got married, the man who assaulted her got out of prison. Someone's even taking my old rag of a shoe? Folks, she's secondhand. I already used her. Lance, the man who ruined my whole family, stormed the wedding. My brother-in-law's family wanted to save face and immediately called off the marriage. My son's a student at a top university. How will he ever hold his head up after this? Flies don't bother a flawless egg. Look at the guy's attitude. Maybe she was asking for it. The whispers always point at the victim, but Lance still refused to let us be. Like a fly, he kept hovering under our building, holding a megaphone and shouting day and night. My used-up shoe lives there. She won't move? Wait and see. Vivian, don't be shy. We were husband and wife for a day. Show some gratitude and come out to have fun. He haunted us with his lewd harassment. Strangely, a few days later, Lance vanished. They say the last place his phone pinged was near our home, the alley where he'd attacked before. 10 winters ago, Vivian was dragged into the abyss there. It was an especially cold year. I clutched my sister and sobbed helplessly. Mom couldn't take the shock and died of a stroke. On Vivian's 17th birthday, unprepared and stunned, we became orphans. That night Lance still ranted under the building. Vivian, don't hide. You dared accuse me. You'll pay the price. I wrapped my arms around her and covered her ears. She was ice cold, not a bit of warmth left, just like when I found her in the snow that night. Sis, what did I do wrong? She whispered, looking up with no life in her eyes. I didn't understand. Why would shame turn into a weapon used against a victim? My heart felt like it was being carved. Around 2 a.m. Maybe Lance finally tired and the street grew quiet. After washing up, I went back to the second floor to rest. Half asleep, I heard a faint rustling coming from the wardrobe opposite my bed, like clothes rubbing together. At first I thought it was rats. After all, this was a crowded urban village with bad conditions and poor sanitation. Then, under the dim desk lamp, I saw a slit in the wardrobe door and a scrap of a man's shirt pressed in the gap. Someone was hiding inside the wardrobe, and I peered through the crack and watched me. My heart slammed and I trembled. Lance, he was wearing that rat gray jacket today. I forced myself to stop shaking, pretended to roll over and used the blankets as cover to reach my phone on the pillow. I typed to my sister as fast as I could. Run. Lance is here. I absolutely couldn't let him hurt Vivian again. The moment I sent it, my phone made a crisp little ding. In the dead night, that sound stuck out like a gunshot. My blood ran cold. I hadn't put it on silent. Too late. In the dark, a pair of strong hands had already plunged under the covers and grabbed my ankles. He yanked me off the bed roughly. Lance was shockingly strong. He sneered and restrained me. I struggled wildly, kicking, elbowing, but it was useless. He grabbed my long hair, hauled me up, then smashed my head down hard onto the floor. Bang! My skull seared with pain, the world blurred, nausea almost took me under. The man's ugly face multiplied into shadows. I'd often thought, what if I'd been the one delivering fruit to my aunt that day? Would things have been different? Did Vivian go through this too back then? Footsteps sounded outside the door. Vivian, groggy with sleep, asked, Sis, are you okay? She hadn't seen the text. I kicked uselessly, shaking like a fish on a cutting board, trying to make noise. Lance clamped his hand around my throat to stop me from crying out. Run, I forced the word out, voice squeezed to nothing, but no one could hear. Tears blurred my vision. In the middle of that despair, I heard a click. The doorknob slowly turned. 2 weeks after Lance disappeared, his wife accused me. My relatives in the village say that the night my husband vanished, that little bitch was cutting up meat all night, dumping buckets of blood. She must have killed him. No one paid much heed. A criminal who drinks, gambles, and whores around disappearing is, frankly, welcome news. A few days later, when Detective Drake came by on routine, our cured meats were already hanging. Our 3-story self-built house had a pig pen in the backyard. The smell of slaughter lingered in the air. On the bamboo racks out front hung rows of curing sausages, plump, firm, dark red meat dangling from the poles in clusters. The dense piles of meat gave off a strong, rich smell. But Drake, using his years of detective experience, picked up on something odd. Aren't sausages usually made before the new year? Why only now, after the festival? He asked. I answered calmly, we were busy getting ready for the wedding before the new year, so we didn't have time. Then those incidents happened and the wedding fell through. Now we've got time, what else would we be doing? Drake looked sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up painful memories. Maybe it's better to have seen things clearly early, I said. I'd always respected Drake. After the report, he happened to be on duty near the village and was first on the scene. I'll never forget how he carried my sister into the ambulance. Gemma says the day after her husband disappeared you bought a lot of salt and white liquor. Salt's for curing meat, liquor takes the gamey smell away. I laughed. Minced meat from a grinder doesn't taste right, you need to cut it by hand, which makes more noise. What excuse does Gemma have to accuse me? Noise nuisance? Drake, look around, who here is there to disturb? I glanced around. Many houses in this urban village had already been flattened by bulldozers. The whole place was sparsely inhabited. Lance's harassment wasn't just revenge, it was also about demolition. Our home sits in an area slated for development. The property developers were desperate to evict us. Their terms were outrageous and a few households stubbornly refused. Gradually, we became holdouts. The developer boss hired Lance to bully us, ruin our reputation and force us out. Gemma's brother-in-law is the developer boss's right-hand man. After our family's incident, at my mother's funeral Gemma sent people to smash the wake and accused me of seducing her man and getting him imprisoned. I clutched the urn, curled into myself like a tiny shrimp, not letting go no matter how they shoved me. Now 2 or 3 dozen households refusing to move had all been targets of Lance's vicious reprisals. The worse people behave, the more ghosts they tend to attract. Drake, Lance drinks and gambles and whores, him disappearing for a few days is normal. Gemma is using that as an excuse to frame me. Please, investigate seriously and clear my name. Detective Drake agreed. He inspected the pig pen and the kitchen. As he was about to leave, an old neighbor came in, fuming and waving a just-cooked sausage. My heart dropped. What the hell did you stuff in your sausages? My grandson nearly broke a tooth. Cold sweat prickled my forehead. I glanced at Drake. In the old woman's sausage, sticking out, was half a tooth. My thoughts snapped back to that night, 2 weeks earlier. At the brink of death, for some reason the doorknob stopped turning. My sister said calmly, "Sis, I'm sleepy. I'm going to sleep now." She turned and walked away with no hint of emotion. I felt relief, and then a strange question crept in. Did she really hear nothing at all? As her footsteps faded, Lance gave a smug grin. Just as he reached to tear my shirt, the door swung open without warning. Vivian, who had quietly come back, smashed a vase over Lance's head. While he was down, she used a pillowcase to strangle him. Years of bottled-up pain exploded out of her. She used so much force that her delicate face twisted. Lance was short but strong. At the edge of life and death, I pinned his arms and legs so hard he finally went limp and passed out. "Vivian, what do we do?" "Right, call the police." I was a wreck and reached for my phone, but she knocked it out of my hand. Breathless, hair a mess, her eyes were suddenly full of life, fierce and burning, like something that could scorch the world. "Sis, we only get one shot." My head was buzzing. One shot at what? The moon had risen outside, and the light made her face pale and steady. It was quiet and beautiful, and for a moment I thought, no one could refuse this. "Have you ever killed a pig?" she asked. Of course we had. Dad used to be a butcher, so our pig pen was huge and the cellar still had all the tools. Dad taught us before, don't you remember? Vivian stared at me without blinking. At that moment I stood at a crossroads, remain the forever harassed, pitiable victim, or become the hunter. After a beat, another voice inside me answered, "I remember. You boil the water, get it up to about 80 degrees. We dragged Lance down to the basement together. The kettle boiled, the hot steam blurred his ugly face like the snow mist from 10 years ago. He started to look less like a man and more like a brutish animal, not that animals deserve that label, he didn't. We laid out Dad's tools. Vivian calmly picked a cleaver. Even in that cold my back was soaked with sweat. I wiped my palms and chose the sharpest blade I could find. Tie his limbs, hang him upside down, don't forget to gag him. With the pulley we hoisted him up. "This is harder than killing a pig, the subcutaneous fat, it's thicker," Vivian said. It took more force. When we acted, our hands met like when cutting a cake. For a moment the world went still. Lance was awake, his eyes bloodshot, but with a towel stuffed in his mouth he couldn't make a sound. He thrashed helplessly. Vivian watched, a strange smile on her face. "I used to struggle like that, beg. Did you ever let me go?" she whispered. Blood fell into a basin we had ready, clean and contained. Vivian smiled, the first genuine smile in a long time, and I felt a satisfaction I'd never known. We worked day and night for 3 days and made 300 pounds of sausages. "What's this tooth?" Detective Drake's expression hardened. He warned me with his eyes not to move, then put on gloves and inspected the tooth fragment. Panic tightened my throat and I could barely breathe. After a few looks he was speechless. "Ma'am, this is a fragment of a pig's tooth," he said. I almost fainted and apologized. "We didn't have enough hands. We weren't careful enough. I'm sorry." I'd lost my composure. The first batch of sausages was already gone. Our cured meats were famous around here. Mom's Sichuan recipes were legendary. She had asthma and couldn't do heavy work, but we grew up watching her and learned her techniques. Real hand-chopped meat, the texture and chew, you can't get that from a machine. Mom used to say the difference between food and good food is the life in it, the human touch. We stir-fried dried chilies low and slow, mixed in rock sugar, ginger powder, and pepper from our own backyard tree, then stuffed the mix into casings. When we opened the lid, the scent rushed out. I sliced a piece and Vivian devoured it with a satisfied sigh. "Sis, it tastes like Mom made it." The irony stung. Gemma, Lance's wife, had come to make trouble once, then greedily took a batch of sausages. The rest we handed out to neighbors and ate ourselves. In no time, they were gone. After Drake left, Vivian seemed livelier. She sat in the yard in the sun, started talking to people again, and ignored the whispers. She ate mouthfuls of food and smiled at me. "Sis, I guess when I'm down, eating meat really helps." Seeing her perk up put my mind at ease. If she was okay, I could breathe. But strange things began. My mouth broke out in sores that swelled and hurt. At night my stomach twisted in pain. It felt like Lance was still inside me, eating away at me. Vivian stayed home studying for her adult education exams. "Sis, I can't stay depressed. I'm going to retake the tests." Gavin thought I wasn't from a top school. "I'll prove I can." Gavin was her ex-fiancé, almost my brother-in-law. He said he didn't care about her past, but his mother protested and they split. I distractedly knocked over her practice papers. As they scattered, my breath caught. She hadn't been answering questions at all. What she'd been writing, day after day, wasn't exam practice, it was names. The pages were filled with different people's names, written with force, the pen biting through the paper with hatred. At the top, Lance. Then Gavin. And at the end, a name that made my skin go cold. My own name. Scarlett. My sister had been hating me all along. No wonder. That night I was supposed to deliver dumplings to our aunt, but I got caught up on the phone with my boyfriend and sent Vivian instead. She went even though she didn't want to. I've replayed that what if 1,000 times. What if I had gone? Would Mom still be alive? Would Vivian be safe? But life gives no ifs. For years I devoted myself to caring for Vivian, even giving up my career plans. I trained in surgical medicine and should have kept going for a master's and doctorate to have a future. Instead I took a job at a private clinic so I could be near her and make some money. Then I remembered something crucial about that night. We did it together, yes, but Vivian's hand had been pressed on the back of my hand the entire time. From start to finish. The fingerprints on the blade, only mine. 13. A chilling cold crept through my entire body. I went down to the basement and opened the toolbox. That night, my sister had volunteered to clean up the scene. If she had hidden that knife beforehand, then I was the only one left holding the blame. At dinner, we sat facing each other. Neither of us spoke. It was so quiet, I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. When the plates were almost empty, my sister suddenly said, "Gemma's been asking around, trying to find surveillance footage." My stomach dropped. Gemma was stubborn and sharp-tongued. If this went on, it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. My sister set down her chopsticks and stared at me, her dark eyes like deep wells. "Sis, I want some sausage. Fresh ones." A numb, cold rush went straight to my head. I couldn't tell what she meant anymore, what kind of meat she was talking about. I knew this couldn't go on. I had to end it somehow. Gathering my courage, I told her quietly, "Vivian, use that knife, and turn me in." 14. I had been ready for this for a long time. The moment I made that decision, I knew the consequences. There's no such thing as a perfect crime. Meat can be handled easily, but bones are hard. We sat across from each other for a long while, silent. It felt like we'd reached some kind of unspoken agreement. Then I took out a bank card. "It's all my fault," I said softly. "Focus on your exams. Don't worry about money. I've already prepared it for you. The password is your birthday." Vivian's lips parted slightly, her expression shadowed and unreadable. Then she lowered her head. That's when my phone rang. It was Detective Drake. I was being summoned to the station. "Gemma found some footage," he said. "The night Lance went missing, you were caught driving up the hill, throwing something away." Pain twisted in my stomach. It felt like something was clawing its way out from the inside. "Your house is 20 minutes from that hill. Drake pressed. What exactly were you throwing away? 15. My voice trembled. I know where Lance is. When Drake rushed back to the station, his face was drenched in sweat, his eyes full of disbelief. I lifted my head slowly and said, Lance, he's inside me. 16. I confessed everything. All of it was my doing, I told them. My sister knows nothing. Everyone in the neighborhood knows she's been struggling with depression. After her wedding fell apart, she rarely leaves her room. I recited the lines I'd practiced 1,000 times. Your sister? The officer repeating my statement frowned. I clenched my hands, afraid they'd notice something was off, and nodded. Yes. My sister, Vivian. She doesn't know anything. Her exams are coming up. Please don't disturb her. She used to be a top student. It was that incident that ruined everything. She dropped out, and now she's finally studying again. Please, don't interrupt her progress. The room fell utterly silent. Especially Drake. His expression was strange, twisted, filled with pity and something I couldn't name. Finally, he said quietly, almost painfully, Vivian, you don't have a sister. Your sister, Scarlett, she died 10 years ago, the night of that assault. 17. A wave of nausea and dizziness crashed over me. What was he saying? That was impossible. I was Scarlett. I was the older sister, the protector, the one who took care of Vivian all these years. Poor Vivian had been the victim. She needed me. I was the one who shielded her, who faced the world for her. I'm Scarlett. I screamed. Drake sighed, handed me a mirror, and forced me to look. The girl staring back had pale skin, shoulder-length black hair, and trembling shoulders. Not me. Not Scarlett. I jumped up, smashed the mirror, and screamed. No! You're not me. You're not. The broken glass reflected my terrified face. Vivian, Drake said softly, you have dissociative identity disorder. He rubbed his forehead. When I visited you last time, something felt off. I went back and listened to the recording. He played the tape. Gemma came and trashed the funeral. She said I seduced her husband. I said the sausages we made turned out great, Drake. You should take some too. I said we. Drake looked at me with helpless eyes. I kept wondering, who's we? As far as I know, you live alone. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head, a scream tearing out of my throat. My mind cracked open. Memories flooded back like boiling water. And suddenly, I remembered everything. 18. The security footage showed it all. A terrified girl sat trembling, then, in the next second, her entire demeanor changed. Her head lifted. Her posture relaxed. Her eyes, her voice, even her breathing, completely different. You can call me Vivian, she said with a sleepy smile. But I'm also Scarlett. 19. Yes. I'm the younger sister. That snowy night, I was carrying a thermos of dumplings for our aunt. But my hard-working sister, Scarlett, couldn't let me go alone. She hung up on her boyfriend and ran after me. That's the kind of person she was. Kind. Responsible. When Lance attacked me, I was beaten unconscious. Through the blur, I saw my sister burst into the room. She fought him fiercely, but she had asthma. Her inhaler fell aside. The snow kept falling, thicker and thicker, covering her face as she struggled to breathe. I couldn't move. I saw her reaching for her medicine, and then, nothing. Someone called the police later. When Drake carried the victim to the ambulance, it wasn't me. It was my sister, already gone. That night, I lost everything. But Lance only got 10 years. 10 years, after destroying our entire family. The grief split me in two. Whenever the pain became too much, my other self, Scarlett, took over. She dealt with the shame, the anger, the world. She comforted me, protected me, loved me. One officer muttered, how could someone this fragile fight Lance and turn him into sausages? Another said, we tested those sausages. Pure pork. Nothing else. Even Gemma had eaten some, and freaked out so much she went to the hospital. But every test came back clean. She imagined everything, someone concluded. Severe delusional disorder. She belongs in a psychiatric hospital, not a jail. Then, someone rushed in, pale-faced. They found the bags Vivian dumped in the hills. Everyone froze. There's blood in them. And Lance's clothes. The gray shirt. The one I'd seen stuffed in my closet. 20. I stood there, stunned. Could it be, that night in the closet, someone really was there? Had I actually fought him? I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Scarlett wasn't there to answer. Without her, I was lost. Drake caught onto something. Your two identities, do they share memories? Whoever's in control, only she remembers, I explained weakly. But we trust each other. We never keep secrets. We even write everything in a diary, what we did each day. I tried to recall everything carefully. Scarlett said she disposed of the bones 6 times, in 6 different places, the hills, the factory, the river. But when Drake checked those places, nothing. No bones. No trace. And Lance's phone? He said grimly. The signal vanished in the alley. Not near your house. My head spun. So the diary, was it all a lie? If Scarlett lied to me, then why? And if Lance really disappeared, where did he go? If he's still out there somewhere, then maybe, just maybe, I'm not the killer after all. 21. The bizarre case spread like wildfire. The media called it the sausage murder. The name alone was enough to draw everyone's attention. Online discussions exploded. I can't look at sausages the same way again. That woman's stupid. Why didn't she just move out? Oh please, why should the victim be the one to leave? Did she do anything wrong? You want to pay her rent? When will restraining orders actually work? Mental trauma is still trauma. Her breakdown was caused by fear. Lance brought it on himself. And me? I became a specimen under the microscope, watched by police and doctors alike. Cameras recorded my every move, every bite of food, every twitch of expression. If they couldn't find solid evidence, I'd be declared legally insane and free. A psychiatrist came in to observe me. After days of study, he finally said, she may not have just one personality. 22. Her behavior patterns look like 2 different people. The older sister loves reading and cooking, and she's the one who goes out to work. The younger sister rarely leaves home, obsessed with exams and studying non-stop. The doctor pointed to the table full of empty wine bottles. But someone here's been drinking heavily. The older sister has asthma and avoids alcohol. The younger sister doesn't drink either. So who's been drinking? Detective Drake's eyes widened. She was drunk when she turned herself in. I sneered. I never drink. Not a drop. The doctor stayed calm. Maybe the silent one is someone neither of you has met. A protector, who only appears at the most critical moments. I fell silent. If you can split off an older sister, he said softly, why not someone else? He folded his hands. After all, your father was a butcher. A butcher, violent, heavy drinker, wordless and terrifying. 23. His words sent a chill up my spine. That explains why you only remember the bloodletting. The dismemberment, those were done by your father's personality. He was skilled with knives. It was him who cut and disposed of the body. We found Lance's footprints outside your 2nd floor window. He likely broke in that night to hurt you. During the struggle, he was killed. Then your father appeared and cleaned it up. The address in your diary wasn't written by your sister. It was your father, trying to mislead us. My stomach twisted at the memory. That burning, nauseating heaviness. It wasn't psychological. It was the alcohol. Dad was an artist with a blade. Even a piece of meat looked graceful in his hands. His only flaw? The drinking. I'd often thought, if Dad were still alive, Lance would have never dared touch us. The media went wild. The dead father returned for revenge. A father's love knows no bounds. If it was her father's personality, shouldn't Vivian's sentence be reduced? There's no corpse. Hard to convict, let alone reduce anything. But how do we know she's telling the truth? If she were lying, she wouldn't have turned herself in. The case spiraled out of control. The murder, the village demolition scandal, the developers hired thugs, it all came to light. And then one day, someone unexpected showed up at the hospital. My ex-boyfriend, Gavin. 24. Gavin looked worn down. The moment our eyes met, he started crying. Vivian, you'll be okay. I sold my house, I'll get you a lawyer. He kept apologizing. I should have never left you to deal with everything alone. If I'd been there, maybe you wouldn't have turned out like this. I watched him cry and asked quietly, how do you know I'm Vivian? Not the sister? The look on his face, utter shock, made me laugh. It reminded me of school. After everything happened, I became an outcast. People stared like I was a curiosity in a zoo. One day in PE class, the teacher was teaching self-defense. Someone shouted, let Vivian show us. No one knows better than her. The laughter drowned me. They weren't cruel for the sake of it, they were curious. Curious about the victim, about the blood, about the horror. That's when I realized. Physical humiliation fades, but mental torture never ends. And in the middle of that darkness, Gavin appeared. 25. He'd confessed to me once. I ignored him, focused on my studies. But when people mocked me, he always defended me. Later, when I worked part-time at a small clinic, he'd come pick me up every day. Before our engagement, I asked, "Did you tell your parents about my past?" His parents were government officials. Face and reputation meant everything. He hesitated. Why bring it up? It's not exactly good news. Right. Not good news. So I understood their choice. I don't blame you, I told him. Your parents were right to worry. This time, Gavin seemed determined. Despite his mother's protests, he kept visiting me. He even showed proof that he'd sold his house. I smiled softly. You're a good boy, Gavin. My voice was low and rough, older somehow. He froze, the knife in his hand slipped, cutting his finger. Who are you? 26. Who am I? I picked up the knife, peeled the apple cleanly from start to finish. I'm Scarlett and Vivian's father. I ran a thumb over the blade, eyes sharp. Poor Gavin had never seen dissociative identity disorder up close. He didn't know what to do. I gestured for him to sit. This is a talk between men. I didn't come out earlier because I was testing you, I said. You said nothing at the wedding. You disappointed me. I can't hand my daughter to someone like that. Gavin stared, speechless. Then, Lance. Is he still alive? He should be, I said. If he's alive, why didn't you tell the police? Because Lance worked for the developers. He knew too much. There's a mole inside. I couldn't risk it. I smiled faintly. Find him. Clear my daughter's name. 27. While the city searched for Lance's body, a photo surfaced. Lance, very much alive, sneaking out of a safe house. The timestamp? Yesterday. Everyone was stunned. But before they could reach him, news broke. Lance was found dead, poisoned in a remote mountain cabin. If no one had discovered him, he would have rotted to bones. The killer? Gavin. He worked at a chemical research lab, the same place the poison came from. He'd been careful, almost too careful. If the police had arrived a few hours later, he'd have gotten away clean. When asked for motive, he said nothing. Detective Drake pressed him. If Vivian gave you the address, why didn't you tell us first? Gavin finally muttered. Because I wanted to do it myself, to avenge her. 28. In the news, Gavin was painted as a tragic hero, a man who killed for love. The lawyer said it was premeditated murder, meaning at least 17 years in prison. Online, people pitied him. Sure, he broke up under his mom's pressure, but selling his house to help Vivian? That's love. Lance deserved it anyway. No matter what Lance did, murder's still murder. You can't excuse that. I'd been cleared of all suspicion. Under a swarm of cameras, I visited Gavin in jail. His prison uniform was wrinkled, but I didn't care. I hugged him tightly. The cameras spun around us, capturing every angle. An entire nation watched our love story unfold. I looked up at him, eyes shining. Don't worry. I'll take care of your mother. The cameras ate it up. Gavin, though, looked at me like he was watching a ghost, his twisted smile barely human. As I turned to leave, I whispered, "Want to know a secret?" He blinked. "Do you know why Lance showed up at our wedding so fast?" I smiled. Because I gave him the address. 29. That night when Lance vanished, I'd actually gone to see him. He threatened me for 1 million. Give me the money and I'll disappear. I know your area's being demolished, you'll get plenty from compensation. He sneered, thinking he had power. But I was calm, cold. I don't have 1 million, I told him. But we can make a deal. He raised an eyebrow. A deal? With me? At the negotiation table, I said, there are no enemies. Only leverage. I could have killed him that night. But I decided to use him instead. You're desperate because the developers you work for are turning on you. You need cash to escape before they silence you. But you've seen how slow the demolition's going. By the time I get my money, you'll already be behind bars. He clenched his jaw. I'd hit the mark. My boyfriend, Gavin, I continued softly. He has 2 houses in the East District. Follow my plan, and I'll make sure you get your 1 million. Lance frowned. Your boyfriend's really gonna pay me? Not for me, I said, smiling under the moonlight, but for you, yes. After all, he had plenty of dirt on Gavin. 30. He stared, confused, then realization struck. So, What do you want me to do? Make noise, I said coldly. The bigger, the better. The more chaos, the more money. My tone was sharp as glass. And first of all, you'll need to disappear. 31. I once thought Gavin was my salvation. After we got together, I tried so hard to earn his mother's approval. But she still looked down on me. Once, I overheard her whispering to a neighbor, "Don't be fooled by that poor girl act. She's spending my son's money like water." But I'd never asked Gavin for money. We kept our finances separate. Then, by accident, I saw one of Gavin's transfer records. The name of the recipient froze me cold. Lance. Why was he sending money to that man? I dug deeper. Gavin had been wiring him cash since college. Then I found the threatening letters Lance had sent him. And finally, the truth of that night came out. Years ago, Gavin had liked me, but I ignored him. Angry and proud, he paid some thugs to scare me. To play hero afterward. Lance was one of them. That's why I never understood, why would a drunk from across town show up in our village that night? Because he'd been sent. But it snowed too heavily that evening. Gavin's mother called him back before he could rescue me. Lance, drunk and unsupervised, went too far. Gavin's childish plan destroyed everything. My life. My family. Our peace. 32. So I gave Lance one last job. Follow my plan, I told him. You'll get your money. Don't leave the hideout unless you must, and tell no one, not even your wife. When Lance disappeared, Gavin was the happiest man alive. No more threats. No more blackmail. But that didn't last. When everyone thought Lance had died by my hands, Gavin received a new letter. This time, with a recording of his own voice hiring Lance. He didn't sell his house to help me. He did it to pay Lance's new demand, $2 million. Otherwise, the world would know the truth. 33. To be or not to be, that was Gavin's question now. He could have told the police everything. But then, Lance would live. And Gavin's sins would be exposed. If Lance died, the problem disappeared. After all, everyone already believed I'd killed him. I remembered my teacher's words in senior year. Every choice matters. One question can decide your fate. So, Gavin, what's your answer this time? 34. Just as I expected, he went to meet Lance alone. He studied biology. He knew exactly how to make a body decompose faster, how to make evidence vanish. He thought he could frame me again. He didn't realize the police were already on their way. Even when caught, he said nothing. Because if he told the truth, he'd lose everything. But if he stayed silent, the world would still call him a man who killed for love. Maybe even reduce his sentence. That's Gavin for you. Elegant. Clever. Utterly selfish. 35. Eventually, the demolition finally went through. People got their compensation. Grandma's grandson had his surgery overseas. The boy whose leg was blown off by a firecracker Lance threw. She'd guarded my house faithfully while I was gone, watching the cameras, calling the cops whenever Gavin showed up. I donated half my compensation to a charity helping girls like me. Once the doctors said my condition was stable, I left the hospital. On my first day back at school, Detective Drake came to see me. He looked at my fresh college outfit and smiled sadly. "Vivian," he said after a pause, "you never had dissociative identity disorder, did you?" 36. I tilted my head. "Why do you think that? You told us your personalities didn't share memories." But I found something strange in the doctor's notes. He opened a thick file. "On July 22nd, you were the sister, Scarlett. When I left, I told you I'd be 2 hours late tomorrow. On July 23rd, you were Vivian. You told the nurse I'd be 2 hours late." He stared straight into my eyes. Only Scarlett knew that. There was no written reminder, no note. Which means, your memories did overlap. 37. Ah, so that's where I slipped. I sighed, a little amused, a little annoyed. Fake things always crack somewhere. He'd even found my old training receipts. Voice acting lessons, years of them. To play different people, you have to become them. Scarlett. Father. They were the easiest roles, I knew them best. Outside the university gate, families were taking photos. New students smiling with hope and dreams. A fresh start. I smiled too. "Drake," I said softly, "your theory's good, but it's not evidence." He closed his eyes. "You're right. The killer was Gavin. From beginning to end, that's the truth, isn't it?" I took his hand. It was trembling, cold and sweaty. He was standing at his own crossroads now. I gave it a small shake, smiling. Wish me a happy first day of college. Then I turned, head high, and walked straight through the university gates.